Jermell with an E, just to clarify it. I mean, what he did was impressive. To knock out Rosario with a jab, who does that nowadays? And you can see that Rosario was spasming. I never seen that either from a jab. But it goes to show you that if you land a perfect jab in the solar plex area, which is the money punch, but it's very hard to do. If you can get that punch, it's crucial for fighters, young fighters, to realize the importance of a jab upstairs and downstairs. It was brutal, man. I never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I'm going to say Jermall, and only because I knew Jermell had this in him based on recent past performances, whether it was the first round knockout of Erickson Lubin, the knockout of Tony Harrison. Jermell Charlo has done this and done this very recently. Over the last 3 years, Jermell Charlo has been undefeated, but he hasn't beat top quality opposition. There's no question. At 160 pounds, Sergey Derevyanchenko was his toughest opponent. And Sergey Derevyanchenko, while I think he wasn't the same fighter that we saw against Golovkin, I think that took a little bit out of him, did start to come on in the later rounds, and Jermell Charlo was there to beat him back. He showed a good jab, he showed good conditioning, he showed solid power. This was a test for Jermell Charlo, and he passed it, so I was more impressed by what he did.
Hey, listen, I'm impressed with both of them, but you asked me, I never seen a knockout with a jab. What he did to Rosario was winning rounds too. So, I mean, the rounds that he got knocked down were the only ones that he basically lost, but he was still backing up Charlo. He was making Charlo feel that pressure, but credit to Jermell Charlo. He said he was going to fight more poised. I didn't think that young lion had poised in him, but we saw it. He was patient with that power, and obviously it was devastating. I never seen anything like that.
Jermell Charlo says he is the #1 guy at 160. Do you believe that's true?
I think he made an excellent case dominating Derevyanchenko, something that Jacobs, a huge middleweight, and Golovkin couldn't do. So absolutely, he's a top player. He would be top 3 or 4. Now it's time for Demetrius Andrade to come back and make a statement. But absolutely, that was a hell of a statement at 160.
The two Charlo fights, you know, I know you guys touched on them really great in depth on the podcast today, but
that was big for them, you know, in retrospect. It was big for them to have their first pay-per-view and to do it together. One thing I talked to these guys about actually on the show, I think it was episode 1, might have been, no, it was definitely episode 1. I talked about how hard it must be to follow that act of your brother getting in the ring. Whoever's watching their brother go first, there's so many different emotions and energies that they're going through, hoping he wins, and you know, every time he gets hit and every time he doesn't make the move that you've seen him work on time and time in the gym, and you know, so on and so forth, you know. So I know personally how much everyone goes through, you know, so I know it's always tough for them, and I've asked myself before, like, why did they even go back to back? But it's the way that they want things to be at this point, and you know, I'm proud of them for getting through that first pay-per-view the way that they did. Jermell closed the show.
Is Jermell the best 160 right now, you think? Would he beat Andrade in your... Well, you know, actually that fight in particular, because you fought and beat Andrade.
Yeah, I want to see.
Right.
I want to see Boo Boo Andrade fight Jermell Charlo at 160. I would love to see that fight. But at this point right now, the 160-pound Charlo is the best 160-pound fighter out there, and so is the 154.
How would that Boo Boo fight go? Would it be a big chess match? You know, not a lot. Yeah.
With the Charlo brothers, you have to make them think. and you have to make them move their feet. And from what I've seen, they have problems with guys that can move. They have problems with guys that are busy, and it just makes them it's almost like they're a step behind every time with the reactions when guys are busy and when guys are moving. And I think that Boo Boo is that fighter that can move, bring the fight to you. He's most rangy guy in boxing probably, and he's a southpaw at that. So there will be a lot for the Charlo at 160 to prepare for and getting in the ring with Boo Boo Andrade. And I said that honestly, that's probably why he doesn't mention his name, because he knows that that's a tough fight for him, and a tough fight to get prepared for.
And talking of the box office customers, can you give us a vague idea of how the White Povetkin show performed, particularly compared to non-pandemic times?
Yeah, we were really happy with it. It probably outperformed what we thought. We were very happy with what. I mean, you never know the numbers until 3-4 months down the line, because there's so many different ways now of seeing it. So we're not quite sure what it'll end up being, but everyone was happy with it. And I think the fact that we had the Taylor Bassoon fight on as well was a real boost to it, because we all know women's boxing is going through the roof at the moment. Chantel Cameron, Savannah Marshall, Hannah Rankin about to fight for world titles, and it's just brilliant. And I think that's something which has really come through. And those fights, almost like you put Rachel Ball, Shannon Corney, all these fights are great and they end up being really good. So that's a real bonus that we've had in the last couple of years, that women's boxing's come through fantastically well. But I think, we were very happy. Dillian obviously, lost and that was a big upset for him and his side. But, we're sitting there and we just want great fights. And Alexander Povetkin's punch provides another great night, a rematch. Will lightning strike twice? All of the imponderables, same situation in a way that Joshua was in last year with Andy Ruiz. He got back in and rewrote the wrong sort of thing and did it obviously a lot differently and better the second time. Can Dillian do that, or has Povetkin got his number now, mentally, physically? Who knows? It's one of those, isn't it? You and I go way back, and we can remember the Eubank Collins, the immediate rematches there, the Lennox Lewis situations when there wasn't an immediate rematch with Oliver McCall. It took him a long time to reaccustom to Emmanuel Stewart's style, and then with Hasim Ratman, he thought, well, maybe it was the messing around on the Ocean's 11 set, maybe it was Carnival City and the atmosphere and the altitude, and something went wrong, and he wanted to get straight back in with him and look what happened in the rematch with Hasim Ratman. So who knows? And that's the beauty of heavyweight boxing. That's what provides the drama. So, to get that nailed on, and is it right that Dillian goes straight back into it? Povetkin's ready to gain. He's got to fancy his chances of doing it all over again. Dillian sitting there going, well, I was pretty much controlling the fight, certainly in the fourth round. I had the knockdowns, it was a mistake. I can rectify that. Dillian Whyte is his own man. He's his own character. He said to me half an hour after the fight, I want a rematch. So is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. It adds to the story. It adds to the spin, the narrative of